welcome back to the deep dive. Today we have a really intense one for you.
Yeah, it's a heavy lift today.
It really is. We're getting into a book called Gender Frame: How Men Build Everything by Conrad Riker. And before we even start unpacking this,
Right.
I need to ask you a quick favor. If you value this kind of deep, unfiltered analysis, where we actually tackle the hard topics, hit that like and subscribe button right now.
It genuinely makes a huge difference for us.
Exactly. We need your support so we can keep bringing you these deep dives. So please like and subscribe. Now, back to Gender Frame.
Right. So Riker pitches this book essentially as a field manual
Yeah.
geared very specifically toward a male audience, particularly men's rights activists and, well, men in the red-pilled manosphere.
The guys who feel like the system is rigged against them.
Exactly. The key premise is that our society isn't just, indifferent to men. It's an extraction system.
An extraction system.
Yeah, he argues that the institutions we live under were captured, specifically captured by feminists and Marxists, and are now designed just to harness value from men.
Value like labor, protection, money.
Right, and then to discard them the second they stop being useful.
And just to be completely clear up front, we are reporting on Riker's arguments here. We aren't taking sides or endorsing this politically charged viewpoint.
Absolutely, we're just laying out what is in the source material.
We want you to understand the ideas he's presenting. And honestly, it is an ultra-long, incredibly incisive, and fascinating read.
Very dense.
Which is why if you want the full picture, you really need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books and buy the ebook.
Yeah, he says the digital text is where you get the unvarnished truth.
Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books, go check it out. Because to really understand this invisible frame he talks about, you have to see men the way he says society sees them.
Which is as a service class.
Right. Like infrastructure.
Exactly like infrastructure. You don't thank the power grid when the lights are on.
You just expect it to work.
And you only notice it when it breaks. He says men are that power grid essential, but totally invisible as human beings.
And he backs this up right away with workplace data. We hear so much about the glass ceiling.
The barrier for women getting into executive roles.
Yeah, but Riker totally flips that. He says, sure, look at the top, but why is nobody looking at the bottom? He calls it the glass cellar.
The glass cellar. Because he points out that 93% of workplace fatalities are men.
93%. That's a staggering number.
It is. We are talking about the jobs that actually keep civilization running. Mining, deep sea logging, high voltage line repair.
The death professions.
Right. The dirty, dangerous jobs. He argues that society is perfectly fine with men dying down in the cellar to keep the lights on and the roads paved.
He had that one story about the steelworker in Pittsburgh that really stuck with me.
Oh, that was visceral. Yeah.
It's this guy working in a furnace, 120 degrees, metal dust everywhere.
His skin is like leather from the heat.
And the guy just looks at Riker and says, heat is the only honest thing in this world.
It's such a profound quote because heat, gravity, physics, they don't lie to you.
But society does.
That's his point. He contrasts that physical, brutal honesty of the cellar with what he calls the modern cult of vulnerability.
Which brings us to the Apollo 13 example. I found this fascinating.
Yeah, usually we see Apollo 13 as an engineering triumph, but Riker frames it as a triumph of emotional control, stoicism.
Because when the oxygen tank blew, they didn't stop to do a feelings check.
Right. Gene Kranz didn't ask the astronauts if they felt valid or safe. He just said, let's work the problem.
And Riker says that kind of stoicism isn't toxic masculinity.
Not at all. He says it's an evolutionary necessity for survival. If those men had stopped to process their trauma in the moment, they would have died.
So he's saying that modern therapy culture, this push for vulnerability, is actually a trap for men.
A huge trap. He argues men are punished for showing weakness, but now they're also punished for being too stoic or too strong. It's a no-win scenario.
And he says that trap is even worse in the home, which leads to arguably the most controversial part of the book, what he calls the marriage plantation.
Yeah, he takes a very cold, purely economic view of marriage here.
He talks about the service to exploitation ratio.
Right. He argues that marriage is essentially a financial transfer mechanism where the man assumes all the risk.
And this is where he brings in hypergamy, which is a word you see a lot online, but he gives it a very specific definition.
He says hypergamy means women don't actually want equality, they want upgrades.
Upgrades, wow.
He cites statistics showing 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
70%,
And he links this to the walkaway wife phenomenon.
where a woman basically cashes out.
Exactly. He argues they tend to leave right when a man hits his peak earning years, so the assets are highest, or when he loses his utility, like if he gets laid off or sick.
And he ties this into that soft life trend we see all over social media right now.
The soft life. Yeah, Riker sees that as a celebration of female parasitism, honestly.
Funded entirely by invisible male labor.
Right. It's the desire for the result without the struggle. He uses the commitment threshold model to explain how it happens.
This was the part where he compares relationships to operant conditioning, like a psych experiment.
Yes, Skinner boxes. He claims that emotional intimacy and even sexual response are often used to condition men into providing financial commitment.
So you get the reward when you buy the ring or the house,
Once the commitment is legally locked in, the conditioning schedule changes. The rewards drop off.
because the sale is closed.
Exactly. And if that sounds cynical, he says just look at the legal labyrinth, look at family court.
Let's look at it, because he talks heavily about the fatherhood penalty.
The institutional bias here is wild. He says the legal system operates on the default assumption that the mother is the primary parent.
And the father is just a wallet with legs.
A wallet with legs. The stats he pulls are intense. Men pay 92% of alimony.
And 85% of child support.
Right, and yet custody awards favor mothers 83 to 90% of the time.
He really goes after the whole deadbeat dad myth, too.
He calls it state propaganda. He says a lot of these dads are just dealing with blocked access. And then he brings up Title 4D.
Which is really important for understanding his point about captured institutions. Explain Title 4DD.
It's a federal law that reimburses states for collecting child support, but it goes further than that. It incentivizes it financially.
So the state actually has a profit motive.
Yes. The government literally gets paid more when they process more child support orders.
So keeping families separated generates revenue.
And a happy, intact family generates nothing for the state. He uses this to explain some truly horrific, specific cases.
Like the guy who was jailed after being laid off.
Right. A father loses his job, genuinely can't pay the support, and goes to jail for contempt.
While his ex-wife is receiving welfare.
It's modern-day debtor's prison.
And then there's the treehouse story. That one was just, it was bizarre.
A dad builds a treehouse in the backyard for his kids, doing normal dad stuff. The city comes in and condemns it.
Was it dangerous? Structurally.
No. Riker says it was perfectly sound. The city's issue was essentially that it represented unsupervised male influence.
Wow.
Riker argues the system sees fathers as a risk factor, not a parent. They don't want boys learning how to build things.
Which pivots perfectly into his chapter on schools. The war on boyhood.
He calls it the education enema.
Right. He argues the schools are basically castrating boys.
By pathologizing totally normal male behavior, energy, roughhousing, competition.
Things that boys naturally do.
Yes, but in a classroom designed by and for a feminized system, that behavior is a problem. It's labeled as ADHD.
And so they get medicated.
Medicated into submission. He calls public schools the beta factory, or the boy to failure pipeline.
Because they remove all the risk. No dodgeball, no tag.
No competition, and boys need competition to figure out hierarchies and respect.
He says the system doesn't want sovereign men. It wants obedient, compliant beta workers.
Exactly, and so if everything is this rigged, the workplace, marriage, courts, schools, what do?
Right, because he doesn't just leave you depressed. He has a whole solution section.
Chapters 15 and 19, the Brotherhood Code.
And his solution is not, go get more therapy.
Definitely not. He says men don't need therapy, they need a tribe.
Because men and women bond differently.
Right. Women bond face to face, talking about feelings. Men bond shoulder to shoulder, overcoming adversity together, doing things.
He talks about the wolf pack concept and iron hearth co-ops.
Male-only spaces where guys can just be guys, solve problems, and build parallel economic systems.
Which is the core of his sovereign man framework.
Refusing to serve a system that actively hates you.
He brings up Tang Ping, the Chinese lying flat movement.
Doing the bare minimum. But Riker adapts it. He says, don't just lie flat, completely avoid the traps.
Avoid marriage unless you have an ironclad prenup.
Focus on creating actual value instead of chasing female validation.
It's about waking up to the reality of the red pill future.
Right. He points out that men hold 85% of all patents. Men are the engines of civilization.
If men stop working those deadly jobs, Society collapses.
Almost overnight. He says the future belongs to men who wake up to their actual value and refuse to be erased.
Well, it is an incredibly deep, heavy dive into this invisible frame.
It really challenges you to look at every institution differently, from the classroom to the courtroom.
Definitely a survival guide for guys who feel like the math of modern life just isn't adding up anymore.
For sure.
So we've covered a lot of ground, but we've really only scratched the surface of Riker's arguments. To really get the full field manual, you have to read the book itself.
You really do.
Go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now and buy the ebook, Gender Frame. You won't regret it.
It's essential reading if you want the unvarnished details. Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
And if you want to keep up with his ongoing analysis on all this, follow the author at Conrad Riker on Substack.
That's at Conrad Ranker on Substack. He posts weekly, unfiltered truth there.
Highly recommend checking that out. You know, there's one final thought from the book that really stuck with me.
What was that?
Riker asks, if men built the world, why are they living in it like tenants instead of owners?
It really makes you think he's suggesting that the lease is up.
The lease is absolutely up.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for our deep dive today. What do you think about Riker's invisible frame? Are you seeing it in your own life? Let us know. And please hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep bringing you these deep dives.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you on the next one.